The journalist Felipe Moura Brazil posted images on his social media making it clear where Sicário and Flávio were. We can put the image here on the screen again because I think it's for people to get an idea, right? That ceiling right there, look, that was the image Felipe Moura Brazil posted showing the ceiling of the Fasano hotel, right? Which is a really expensive hotel facing Ipanema Beach there in Rio de Janeiro. And then he makes the comparison, right? The verification is about the origin of the ceiling in the photo. Anyway, another piece of evidence we're bringing to show the authenticity of the photo of Flávio together with Sicário.
Yes, and the media outlets that reported on the photo that was brought here by ICL, by Juliana Dalpiva, some of them also did a fact check, right? So several checks were done using different apps and software to test the authenticity of the photo. And beyond that, I think the context that's being shown there is about Flávio getting closer to the henchmen, I mean to Daniel Vorcaro. In a luxurious setting like the Fasano Hotel in Rio de Janeiro, it's a very believable context, right? So if it were, I don't know, somewhere in China, right, we might even be suspicious. Now, this information that he was in a luxury hotel also makes me curious, and I think our community must be wondering about it too. What was Flávio Bolsonaro, who lives in Rio de Janeiro, doing in a luxury hotel in Rio de Janeiro? Right?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I know that the Fasano Hotel usually welcomes people there for day use, right? So they can go there to enjoy the sunset, you know, the vibe, the energy of the beach. But in the case of Flávio Bolsonaro with Sicário, we can already assume, right, that there might have been another kind of meeting there. It's a shame that we don't have more information. Enough yet, right? Not even this photo for now, but I also think a lot is still going to happen. He left a lot of traces of this relationship, right? We have to wait for new developments. Oh, Gabi.
Real quick. I talked to people from Rio de Janeiro, and they said that the rumor in Rio de Janeiro, even among people closer to Eduardo Paes and all, is that this weekend more things might leak related to this kind of relationship, you know? Yeah, related to the coffee relationship. Yeah. More images or more information might leak about Flávio Bolsonaro's relationship with Sicário and Vorcaro. So the weekend could be intense.
Even more, right, as if there wasn't already enough heat for Flávio Bolsonaro's campaign, but it's just for Rogéria.
Bolsonaro?
I liked it, yeah.
The Freudian slip, but this was a good Freudian slip. It's Rogéria Bolsonaro, Flávio's mother. She's the substitute for the guy who had a rifle in his car and is under investigation. Look at Márcio Canella. The substitute for this guy is Flávio Bolsonaro's mother. Well, if everything else Gabi already mentioned wasn't enough, Adriano da Nóbrega, leader of Rio de Janeiro's hitmen, was decorated by Flávio Bolsonaro.
That's right, Rodrigo. I think it's always important for us to remember his background, which is something that Flávio Bolsonaro and his campaign, I imagine, have nightmares about, and even more so with what's still to come, right? Because it seems like it just keeps coming up. Yeah, today I was talking to Felipe Pena, the journalist. He comes here a lot, right, to our shows. Yes, he's great. It's great to talk to him. And he was saying the truth will set you free in this case, right? The truth will set you free. But in this case, it will imprison you, right?
The truth will imprison you. Very good.
The situation is quite complicated, but let's keep talking about Flávio Bolsonaro, about the meeting he has scheduled with the federal police, which will happen on July 28th, not next week, but the one after that, right? So Minister Alexandre de Moraes scheduled his testimony for that day, for the 28th in the investigation that looks into a possible crime of slander against President Lula. There are posts on social media where Flávio said that Lula would be accused of alleged crimes like international drug trafficking, money laundering, supporting dictatorships, all of that without any evidence, as he said, right? And in the decision, Minister Alexandre de Moraes said that the federal police gave Flávio's defense the opportunity to suggest a date and time for the testimony. But the lawyers only asked for more time. They didn't present any documents proving it was impossible to hold this hearing within the period granted by the minister. After the testimony, the inquiry resumes. It goes back to the Office of the Prosecutor General, which will decide whether to file charges with the Supreme Court, request further investigative steps, try to understand the story better, or ask for the case to be closed. But there's still this coming up very soon for Flávio Bolsonaro, right after he posted on social media. And this is a period when a lot of things like this can happen, right, Amanda? Because during the campaign anyway, a lot of things like this can come up since they usually do post fake news on social media.
Absurd news that obviously he won't be able to prove, especially considering the seriousness of the crimes he tried to link to the President of the Republic. And of course, for his audience, for the Bolsonaro supporters, it ends up being a distraction. Everyone shares it. Everyone also uses it as ammunition in this pre-election period. But in practice, they also contaminate the public debate with all kinds of misinformation that later on we actually have a lot of difficulty trying to debunk, right? How are you going to say that the President of the Republic, what kind of argument will the President of the Republic have to say that they're not connected to drug trafficking, right? That's something that's pretty obvious, but it's really hard to consider that as a worthy argument for an electoral debate, right? It's a very crude kind of misinformation, very much in the style of Bolsonarism.
I think he keeps collecting trouble for the future, slipping on banana peels. Yeah, he has appointments with the justice system, Flávio.
I thought you were going to say that he has appointments with banana peels.
That could be it too. He has appointments with banana peels, not because people throw them, but because he sees them and steps on them himself. Amanda, we already discussed this a lot yesterday, right? Besides this case, there's the electoral case, the letter, where he goes out, takes his father's letter, and reads a letter that contains a request for votes, which therefore could be characterized as an election law violation. Minister Alexandre de Moraes actually sent this to the Electoral Prosecutor's Office. This could lead to an investigation and maybe a conviction in the electoral area that would make Flávio Bolsonaro ineligible. So he's on that path, basically.
The highlights that Felipe Moura mentioned, which are important, like from Flávio Bolsonaro's biography, right? The relationships he had. We also talk a lot here at ICL about him going to present that Tiradentes medal, which is the highest honor in the state of Rio de Janeiro, to Adriano da Nóbrega, right?
Inside the prison.
Inside the prison.
When Adriano was in prison.
Let's remember Adriano's mother and Adriano's ex-wife, they were employed in Flávio's office in the Rio State Assembly. And so this is also part of Flávio's history, and it speaks to these relationships, right? So maybe this photo with Sicário is just the beginning, right, of pulling this thread. There's also Rodrigo Bacelar, former president of the Rio State Assembly. He points that out too, also an ally of Flávio, who was arrested for leaking information to the Red Command. He also mentions Flávio's relationship with Claudio Castro. There's also that famous video, right, of Flávio with Claudio Castro. What?
Is it again?
That they have a friendship that goes way back. Another issue involving this photo, which has come to light now, is where this photo was taken, right? Juliana Dalpiva, she had detailed this, right, confirming some information she had brought to us.